I had someone recently ask me about different safety tips as a female professional wrestler and as someone who has had to do a lot of traveling, be it in carpools or alone. And so they wanted me to share some more stuff. And on this podcast, I've shared different things with you with different scams and so forth. So I actually thought with people starting to venture out and things getting less and less safe, that this was actually a good question to make sure I focused on this week on my podcast. So here we go. One thing for safety tips, this is something I will never ever do. And here it is. I will never post about going on vacation until after I am already back from vacation. This is something that I make a point of doing. I will never ever post about my vacation while I'm on my vacation. Basically, the reason being, if you advertise that you are on vacation, you are far more likely to get robbed on your vacation or your house robbed while you are gone on vacation. It makes you a very, very easy target. So that is something that I would never do. Like, if you can't wait a few days to post all your photos from your vacation, then like, were you actually going on vacation to enjoy your vacation? Or were you going on vacation just to post it on social media to get attention from other people that don't really even care? These are questions you got to answer. Your safety is more important than the validation of people that don't really care. Second thing I would never do as a traveler, and this goes whether you're a man or a woman, because in today's day and age, your gender does not matter in the sense that, you know, if you're going to get robbed, you're going to get robbed regardless. So this is something I would also never do, especially as a female traveling, be it for wrestling or work or anything else. I never share my hotel information with anybody who is not a need-to-know family member or person from which I need to be working with for whatever I am doing. If you share your hotel, you are far more likely to have unwanted visitors. And that could be a very, very dangerous situation, especially walking the halls or getting into elevators at that hotel late at night. This is very big with the wrestling world. You know, that information easily leaks out, and it's easy to see where the wrestlers are all heading to. So you just have to be especially mindful, especially if you have a hotel room that is right next to a staircase, like an emergency exit staircase. That is a perfect place for, you know, somebody to lay in wait for you to be not paying attention coming to or from your room. Another thing I would do at hotels is if I do not feel comfortable, I will not get on the elevator. I will get onto my phone and pretend that I am waiting for somebody or something. I will never admit that I am traveling alone. The next thing that I will not do as a person who has experienced many different things living life on the road, literally since I was 17 years old in the business, is I will not just order any sort of Uber. There is really no background check sort of system. So the point being, if you were driving in something and you're using something like an Uber, it's far more likely than not that the person that is going to be picking you up as your Uber is most likely not the person that registered for that Uber, meaning the driver, okay? There has been a lot of incidences of kidnappings where they will take you to a destination that was not your intended destination, and there'll be a group of people waiting to rob you of all your possessions and possibly do other bad things. This has been happening more and more and more. It just does not get the same kind of news coverage as a lot of other different things that are happening in the world right now. But that doesn't mean that it's not happening. It's actually happening at much higher rates than you would even realize. So if you're going to order an Uber, spend the extra few dollars, if at all possible, and get Uber Black. You are far more likely to have a safer trip with Uber Black. So that is something that I personally have done because I had a very, very scary experience in a Lyft. When I was in Dallas, I believe it was, for WrestleMania. I want to say like circa 2016, 2017, around that time. And then I also had 2 scary experiences with Uber. Next thing as a traveler that I would never do is I would never plug my address of my hotel or any sort of destinations that I want to go on vacation in my rental car. If I have a rental car, I am not plugging my cell phone or any of my devices into the chargers or USBs of my rental car, and I will not, under any circumstances, type in or use the built-in GPS systems of those rental cars. Those rental cars, there is not necessarily a security aspect, so what that basically means is anybody that has access to those rental cars before you, during your trip, after your trip, they can end up with access to all of your information, and there is no telling where the dark depths of the dark web that they'll take your information. Basically, they can put viruses and all kinds of different connections into those ports, and then when you plug your devices into those things, they can take all of your information from your banks, your home address, your passwords, to pretty much everything, because we live in such a digital world. So that is something I would never do, ever. I would use my own GPS, and I would use my own chargers that I carry with me at all times. The other thing about not plugging your address or your destination addresses into a built-in GPS for the rental car is, I mean, if you've ever seen that movie with Bruce Willis, that's actually a real thing that happens. Whether it's a valet parker or, you know, somebody that wants to steal the car, they have access to all the places that you are frequently going and or want to go, which creates another safety risk for you. So it's better to mitigate risk than create risk. Another thing that I will not do is rely on just my key fob to securely lock my car, whether I am in it or not. There is a new scam that we talked about on this actual podcast, I believe on last week's episode, that not a lot of people are aware of. Apparently there's like a signal jammer that some people have now that can jam the signal from your key fob to your car. So even though you hear it, you might think you're locking your car, you're actually not, because they're jamming the signal. So the car can remain unlocked for them to rob the car, steal your car, rob what's in the car, steal your car, or lay in wait in the car for you to attack you. So none of those situations are particularly pleasant. So I actually always rely on my own lock button for my cars instead of the key fob. Another thing I will never do as a person who has traveled on the road extensively is the result of learning my lesson, and that is paying for incidentals for your hotel. You know, when someone pays for a hotel or you pay for a hotel and you have to put a card on file for incidentals. Well, one time when I was at ROH, there was an incident that happened to myself and I think Kyle O'Reilly and potentially one other person, but I think I got it the worst, I think. So normally when we would check in, our hotel would be paid for and we would just have to put a card on for incidentals. Well, for whatever reason that day, they didn't ask me for my card for incidentals. And so I was in my hotel room. It was a little after midnight. I was already asleep and my hotel phone rings. I answered the phone and I was so groggy because I actually was able to start getting some sleep, you know, which is rare when you're on the road. And they tell me my card was not on file and I needed to give my card for incidentals. And I did in fact remember that they never asked me for it when I checked in, which at the time I did think was odd, but I said, hey, you know, whatever, you know, it didn't put much thought into it. I had to go for, you know, the promo tapings earlier that day and so forth. So I didn't really have time to ponder it, you know. And I made the mistake of giving my card number over the phone to the person that told me my card was not on file for incidentals. Well, lo and behold, I wake up in the morning and all of my money is gone from my account. And lo and behold, several other wrestlers that were on the roster at that time had also received phone calls. One of them was, I believe, Kyle O'Reilly and some other people. Well, I fell for it because I was literally asleep when they called me and I didn't think anything of it. So this is what I will never do again. So moral of the story here. If they ever want a card for incidentals, I will never give that information over the phone. I will actually either ask if I can give it to them tomorrow morning, or if I absolutely have to give it to them, if I can come down and give it to them in person in 20 minutes. And instead of waiting 20 minutes, I'll actually wait longer. So that way I know someone's not waiting for me outside my hotel room, because that could also be a trap. And then what I would also do is not use a debit card for incidentals, always use a credit card. So that way if money gets stolen, it's the bank's money and not your money. And the bank is far more likely to help you get it back when it's their money and not yours. So that's the moral of that story. Always use a credit card for stuff like that, because if it gets stolen, it's not your money from your own account. And then also just make sure you're not doing that over the phone. And that is going to be it for this week. We can do more of these as more of these come along, but I think those are some standard ones that, you know, maybe some people might not think about.